Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome inside episode 408 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan in the heart of our nation's capital in Ottawa, Ontario, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains. And NHL hockey is back. We had one great game and one not so much as the Tambay Lightning raised their banner to commemorate their 2021 Stanley Cup. That was the first Atlantic Division team to play, but tonight, another slate of games, and tomorrow, Sens Leafs, Battle of Ontario. What better way to kick off the season? So on today's show, last two shows, we've pretty much covered what the Sens look like heading into this season. So it's fair if you've forgotten about some of the Atlantic Division teams, that being almost 2 years since you've last seen them all together. But today we're going to take a look back at what's gone on with the Panthers, Lightning, Sabres, Red Wings, Maple Leafs, Habs, and your Ottawa Senators. So stay tuned for all that. And the Sens just practiced, so we'll let you know what the line combos are, what DJ Smith has to say, and a whole lot more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day. Wednesday, October 13th, and Pilsy, don't look now, but your parlays of the day is already 0-1.
Well, you know, that's what happens, but I would like to look at the positive side of this, Ross. The glass is half full, not half empty. I was half right on that one, so I think everyone can agree that it was an okay bet to make. What was that Tampa Bay stat? They won the last 7 home openers, back-to-back Cup champs. No Malkin, no Crosby on the Penguins, and they still win 6-2. So that's tough. But hey, in the expansion battle, the over did hit, and that was an exciting game for sure.
That was amazing. I will say, in a parlay, you'd rather the second half lose, right? Because then you build the momentum. You were over right before it started.
It was, and especially that first goal of the year, that did not look good for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I was like, okay, Pilsy's parlay of the day, already off the rails here.
Yeah, we'll get into where we think the Tampa Bay Lightning will finish in the Atlantic Division. Full Atlantic preview coming up. Like, there has to be a hangover at some point.
Yeah.
They played so much hockey.
And in a tight period of time. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get into all that, but it's the Locked On Senators podcast. Tomorrow, Pilsy's driving up in the morning. If you're heading to the game, let us know. We're making the pilgrimage from downtown. We're going to meet up with the Leams Martian, who will join us on tomorrow's show. We're going to have that out for you bright and early because, as we mentioned, Pilsy's going to be on the road from Collingwood up to Ottawa. And we can't wait to see all you sickos at the game tomorrow. It's been a long wait, but it might be an even longer wait for Erik Brannstrom. The last 2 days he's been practicing on the outside looking in on the back end. Pilsy, what do you think is more likely, that Erik Brannstrom is scratched or that DJ Smith decides to go with 11-7? Hold your eyes, plug your ears. Don't get Guy Boucher vibes from that. But with the way that the Senators 22-man roster shakes up, going 11-7 might not be the worst idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been too enamored with the 11-7 move. For me, that feels like a move that you're doing to make up for something, right? It's because you're like,
well,
yeah, I know. That's what I'm getting into. It feels like that because it kind of is like that. Like, usually you go 11-7 if, like, maybe your top your top guy is out or something, and you want to help alleviate the pressure between some of the other defensemen, but I don't like the sound of it heading into the season opener, that's for sure.
And not that it's the be-all, end-all, but are you comfortable with Victor Mete running the second power play unit? Because if Del Zotto and Brannstrom are the two odd men out and you go the regular 12-6, you literally don't have a second puck-moving defenseman. And maybe I'm saying it wrong by the second power play guy, but even at 5-on-5, like, that third pair, say what you want. Yeah, Nick Holden, he's had a nice camp, but he and Josh Brown, who's skating the puck out of their own zone?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that. Am I comfortable with Mete being the guy on the second power play? Sure, but that's not the ideal situation, right? Like, we want Brannstrom there. Like, Brannstrom can definitely handle being the defenseman in the second power play unit. So that's what we would love to see. So in that case, I kind of do hope they go 11-7 just to get Brannstrom in. And when I was talking about how it seems like you're covering up for something, well, not only are you covering up for a weak D-core when you do that, but you're also covering up for a weak forward core when you do that too, because you're like, hey, we don't need an extra forward in here getting 7 minutes a night because anyone we'd call up wouldn't really move the needle one way or another. So let's just get another defenseman back there just to supplant those minutes. So I don't really like the sound of 11-7, but with the way this squad is, I mean, it makes sense for them to try that, but that sucks having to talk about this in the home opener. Oh, boy.
Does it ever? It's also the uncertainty between the pipes, Pillsy. We know Matt Murray has been battling the last few days, a cold, not COVID related, but seems like he's feeling much better per DJ Smith. Do you believe that he will be in goal tomorrow night?
It's tough to say. Like, we saw a quick video from 1200 of him on the ice. Kind of looks like he was feeling things out, and he was the first goalie there. So maybe he's feeling better, but this feels like the kind of thing where we won't know this. We won't know this until kind of the morning of, right? Like let's say you got a cold, you got the sniffles the night before, you're like, I don't really know how I feel. You'll know the morning of how you feel. So if that's what it is, which is kind of what they're making it sound like it is, then I have no clue until Matt Murray decides how he's feeling in the morning.
The lines shape up like this, courtesy TSN 1200. Stützle still up with Norris and Batherson. I'm super excited to see that line tomorrow night. And I've got a white jersey that needs to get pressed. And I think I'm leaning Drake Batherson, Pillsy. First ever guest we've had on our podcast. It wasn't even Locked On Senators. So I think I'm leaning Drake Batherson. But if anyone else has any ideas, I think I might even put up a poll. Batherson or Pinto? Now, Pinto would be a stretch, but I've been on Team Pinto pretty hard here. So I might have to go with it.
Those are definitely the obvious ones, but you know what just popped out to me as a good white jersey option? How about a Nick Paul white jersy? I feel like that's a good one too. Yeah, all right, fair. And Nick Paul, he's only got the 1 year on his deal, so let's not get too invested too quickly here. Although if DJ Smith has anything to say about it, he'll be Senator for quite a while.
Yeah, no question there. So second line shaping up, it's Pinto in between Nick Paul and Connor Brown, and the third line, we can keep hammering this point home, but it doesn't seem to matter, Pillsy, and that is the fastest player with the slowest player, Chris Tierney in between Formanton and Ennis. And then what we thought would happen, because Parker Kelly just got called up. Hell, he was probably up busy signing his extension. So congratulations, Parker Kelly, 2-year extension. So he's in the organization for the next 3 years. And that third year, it's a one-way contract. So congratulations to Parker Kelly, the shift disturber. And he will be taking shifts by the sounds of it on the fourth line. And again, we don't know whether they're going 11-7, but Kelly, Shaw, Sabrin, which means Zach Sanford, who's been the definition of a guy since he got here, like a warm body, he is on the outside looking in. So that's a bit of a surprise, maybe, but at the same time, not really. So
based on his play, not really. Yeah.
On defense, Shabbat, Zub, that's going to be fun. Like when the Sens, their top end right now, I'm very excited to see Norris, Stützle, Batherson, Shabbat, Zub, and even the second line, Pinto, Paul, Brown. Paul and Brown, seems like they've done something special together, the two of them. So you have those two on the same unit, given gold, and then you got Shane Pinto right in between. I'm super excited for that, but then it really falls off after that. Like Mete Zaitsev on the back end doesn't really get me going. Holden, Josh Brown, how are they going to break the puck out of their zone? That'll be interesting. And then as we discussed, Matt Murray feeling better. So that's how your Senators are expected to line up. DJ Smith, however, did put an asterisk that no decision on the lineup will be made until tomorrow morning. The way that we just saw those, Pillsy, is that how you'd expect them to go in? And who's your, I'll save the locked on player, but who are you most curious to see in game one?
Well, first off, before we head into that, Ross, I think got to give Chris Tierney a bone here. I bet if you throw Chris Tierney and Scott Sabrin out there in a quick race, Chris Tierney wins that one.
I don't think so.
No?
Sabrin maybe doesn't have the agility side to side that most guys have, but straight line, I feel like he can get in on the forecheck.
Well, we got to settle that then. Who is the slowest player on this team? We got to figure that out for sure. But I think to answer your question,
it might be Josh Brown.
Yeah, true. Actually, we got to get Brownie in there as well. Yeah. But who am I locked on to? It's got to be Tim Stützle. Like, here's a guy who has a chance to play on the top line. we talked about it yesterday. The spotlight has shifted from Brady Tkachuk, who's not on the ice, and I don't think will be on the ice, unfortunately, to the next star in Tim Stützle. Sorry. So he's getting the opportunity. There's no reason why he can't succeed here, right? Like, I think it's going to add a different kind of energy to this line. It won't be as much crash the net, create chaos. It'll be more let's cycle the puck. Let's get into open space. Yep, exactly. So I think it's going to change the identity of that top line, but there's no reason why Tim Stützle can't put the puck in the net with the two best forwards on this team in Josh Norris and Drake Matheson at his side.
No disrespect to Connor Brown, who had 21 goals. Every time I say it, it impresses me. But Connor Brown, a big part of this team. And the leadership group will be announced tomorrow. So it'll be after we record. So maybe we'll do a Locked On Now for that. We'll make a little video once the Senators unveil their leadership group. And you got to think they're not naming captain tomorrow. But that being said, Brady Tkachuk has to still be named to the leadership group. This guy was on it last year.
Yeah, that's going to create an awkward situation.
No, they're just going to put him on it. They're going to have all of them as assistants. Just like I think the Rangers did that, where they made 6 assistants. But I do believe they're still going to
all those guys were signed. All those guys had a contract and are expected to play. I bet we see the Sens throw some petty shade and don't put Brady Tkachuk. I bet we see that. I bet we see it. Also, was it Dorion that said, I think I saw a quote from 1200 that was saying he said they will name a captain this season, just not yet.
At some point this season. Yeah, he had a town hall with season ticket holders yesterday. So some quotes were coming out about that, saying they want to add, not subtract at the deadline. I thought that was interesting when you look at they subtracted this offseason from what they had in game 56 last season. But hey, time will tell. The confidence I can appreciate from Dorion, but let's see it on the ice. And it'll be blatantly obvious early on because the Senators' schedule is not easy at the start of this. Back-to-back with the Leafs on Thursday and Saturday. Then you travel from Toronto back to Ottawa on the Sunday and play a Sunday afternoon game against the Dallas Stars. The New York Rangers are coming to town. Erik Karlsson's coming back.
Yeah, the Sharks will be a matchup they can feast on. But other than that, it's tough ones.
What if they lose the Sharks? Then all of a sudden confidence just dips all the way down. But yeah, you're right. Stützle on that top line is going to be a ton of fun to watch if you're heading down to the CTC. All right, we know tomorrow's going to be a big day, Pilsy. You're going to be on your horse all the way into the nation's capital. And I bet when you get here, you're going to need to power up. And why else would Built Bar not be the perfect sponsor to have? We're going to be crushing Built Bars all day tomorrow, making sure that the energy stays high for the home opener. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They come in 16 amazing flavors as well. They're all covered in chocolate, soft and easy to chew. Yeah, tastes great, but what about how it affects you? Built Bars are great for the health-conscious guy or girl because you can lose or maintain weight while indulging in a delicious treat. The bars are low in calorie, low in sugar, but they're high in protein and high in fiber. Pilsy, I'm going to give you a chance for your parlay of the day, but you've lost your opportunity to give a pick of the day because if it's like your parlay last night, it could be wrong. But Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. So go to built.com, and put in the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. It's Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. All right, Pilsy. So I forgot the Boston Bruins off the intro when I was quickly naming all the teams in the Atlantic Division. So why don't we start there? Because if we're going alphabetically, they're the first one. And to me, they're the team that's most ripe for the picking. If there's a team on the outside looking in and saying, I need to knock one of these teams who was in the playoffs the last time or over the last number of years, I think Boston might take a step back this year.
Yeah, I would definitely say they didn't take a step forward. They're definitely taking a step back. I still have them as one of the teams making it. I've got a different squad as the outside looking in team, but Boston is down there. Like, I've got them finishing third in the division. And here's the thing. Make no mistake, Ross. Like, this is a squad that still has championship pedigree, right? Like, you've got, anytime you have Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak, like you're gonna have a good chance at making a run here. But the old guard has changed, though. There's no Krejci, there's no Rask, and the thing is, they didn't really replace Krejci, right? Like, they're just gonna expect a big season from Charlie Coyle here to really step up and be that second line center. But with Krejci's, it's funny to say, but the biggest contract now off the books for the Bruins, that left money to re-sign Taylor Hall, which is so massive. Like, to have Taylor Hall as secondary scoring is pretty damn good. And then it also allowed them to bring in Nick Foligno, who I think will bring a good veteran presence that was left with Krejci. And they took a big roll in the dice on Buffalo goaltender Linus Ulmarku, who I thought was a risky decision, Ross, but I looked at his numbers. Man, this guy played his whole career in Buffalo while they've been absolute garbage the whole time. And his average is like 2.6 goals against and like a 9-10 save percentage. Like, don't get me wrong, that doesn't pop out of the page of you. But when you're talking about being the starting goalie for the worst team of this decade and putting up decent numbers, that says a lot. So put him on a good team with structured defense and scoring to help him out, and he could have some success here.
Yeah, you look at similar to Robin Lehner when he was in Buffalo, like the save percentage was always good. They were just always managing to find ways to lose like bad teams do. But you're right. Over especially the last few seasons, like they were a bad team. And yet last year in 20 games, he still had a winning record. He was 9-6-3 with a 917 save percentage. So it is a good bet, although for this season, it's not going to matter as much, but they gave him a lot of money. I think it was 25 million, 5x5.
I think it was a 5-5. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the question remains, though, Pillsy, that was one of the strengths of the Boston Bruins last year. Tuukka Rask's been a staple there since Tim Thomas left. So, yeah, he's a good goalie, but is it still an upgrade or even a maintenance of where they were?
I don't have it as an upgrade for sure. And I think there's such a negative connotation to Tuukka Rask that I think people forget to just take a step back and look what he's actually done.
Very good.
Tuukka Rask has been incredible for that team. Like, they don't do what they've done without him, to be quite honest. Like, you can't win championships without goaltending, and he's been there for them, and he's been a good regular season goaltender. So it's tough. I think just the relationship kind of got broken with the whole him leaving the bubble and all these kinds of things. Like, I don't know that, but I think that's when it seemed to really kind of teeter off, and it didn't seem like this was going to be kind of a marriage that would keep going between Rask and the Bruins. But let's not forget too, Jeremy Swayman came into this league with some swagger. Like, he was putting up Gustafsson numbers in the same sample size, even better than Gustafsson. I think he was a 945 save percentage, and then it was like a 1.5 goals against average in 10 games. Like, he's been so damn good. So if Ulmark starts to get, maybe crumble under the pressure a little, you can turn to Swayman, and I think he can be positive for you in a couple spot starts.
So Swayman is now full-time. Yaroslav Halak, their former backup, who did really well there, he's in Vancouver. They re-signed Taylor Hall to a 4-year extension, but the centerman is now gone. Right? No David Krejci, and that's going to be a big loss for them. What did they do? They went out and they replaced them with a winger, right? They didn't really do much. They expect Charlie Coyle to be the number 2 center there now, Pillsy. But I look at bringing in Nick Foligno as something that could rejuvenate his career. I mean, his best highlight in Toronto we've talked about was wearing his dad's old hat. That was a quick swing and a miss by Kyle Dubas. And then what Dubas did was go out and take the player that was on the odd man out in Boston when they signed Nick Foligno, and that's Nick Ritchie. So They lose Nick Ritchie, add Nick Foligno. I think that's a net positive for them and sends abroad. Mike Riley earned a nice extension from the Boston Bruins. So they're still a good team. They still have Patrice Bergeron. They still have David Pastrnak.
This is a playoff team. Like, to sum it up, playoff team.
Charlie McAvoy is a star in the making. You expect to see him with Team USA at the Olympics next year. He's that good.
Oh yeah, and top pair guy for sure.
I'm
and how about Grzelcyk? What a great bright spot there for them too, eh? Matt Grzelcyk, he really turned into a good defenseman. And then someone that's underrated, but check out Brandon Carlo's numbers. Like, maybe I didn't look last season. I kind of forget where he was at last season, but the seasons before, he was one of the best penalty killers, great shutdown guys. So they've got a balanced decor too. So really, like, this team has all the pieces, but can the goaltending hold up? And like we mentioned, can that second line center be filled up with Charlie Coyle instead? So
we're going to do this alphabetically by city name. And then at the end of today's show, we're going to give our predictions for the Atlantic Division, how things will all shake out. So that's the Boston Bruins, who last year, although, do we even go with last year's numbers? I guess we can, but the different division does kind of.
It's so hard. It's apples and oranges, right? But what else can you do? You can't really compare it to 2 seasons ago. So
exactly. So last year the Bruins were 33, 16, and 7. That was good for third place in the East Division. So we move on to another team who was in the East Division last year, and that's the Buffalo Sabres. They went 15, 34, and 7. So Linus Ulmarku won 9 out of their 15 games.
yeah.
Wow. They had, I believe, a 17-game losing streak in there. Jack Eichel, he's not playing another game for them. That whole situation in itself is wild. But what is more wild? Probably that. But at the same time, Rasmus Dahlin, they're going to play it forward this year for some shifts? What?
If you're the Buffalo Sabres, you're just like, why the hell not?
Play him at goalie.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they could use the goaltending. No offense
No
to Craig
disrespect
Anderson.
to Craig Anderson.
But having him as your number one guy and then Dustin Tokarski coming in to mop up the mess too. And then if that doesn't work, don't worry. You got Aaron Dell ready to
Fire
go.
up the old Dell laptop.
I think they're going to have some real issues there. And I think they plan on having some real issues. And then I think this is the hardest part, is seeing that Jeff Skinner contract there too. Like, to be a rebuilding team and to have to pay a guy that much money to underperform, it's the worst contract in the league. I think there's no debate about it whatsoever. And then
he's only in year 3. He's making $10 million in salary this year, and then on July 1st he gets a $7.5 million bonus.
And hey, say what you want about Eugene, but he's been bitten by the bonuses before, so he's cut that out of there. So that's fair to say. And then the thing with Buffalo too is they just can't seem to draft and develop, right? Like Casey Middlestat, he's got a lot of skill, but they don't have the right guys to support him, and they can't develop him. Dylan Cousins, I'm really excited about, but again, like, who's going to help him? Who's going to support him?
Nobody.
And then Ristolainen was supposed to be a number 1 defenseman, and that just really didn't work out.
At least they got a pick for him, though. At least they got a first rounder for him. That was a surprising move. And finally, you can look back at a trade that Buffalo made and say, okay, that's great, because they're still trying to piece together what they got for Ryan O'Reilly. Like, Tage Thompson was the big prospect there, and now they're moving him to center, a position he hasn't played in 5 years. But I do think Don Granato is a good coach, so they do have that coming for him. They had brought in like guys who weren't even around hockey very much to be the coaches and trainers and all of that. In an experiment, Robin Leonard was talking about it recently a few years ago. So that being said, I think that they're still destined for the basement. No spoilers.
This is the worst team in the NHL.
Easily the worst team.
Easily.
So let's not spend too much time thinking about that, because we do have 6 or 7 teams. So we're not going to preview Ottawa. I think we've done a fair job of that through about 100 episodes since the last time the Ottawa Senators played. A reminder then that you can go back and listen to any and all Locked On Senators episodes wherever you download your podcast, and on YouTube. We have to thank everybody, especially for yesterday. We tweeted out saying, hot take, we want to get to 1,000 subscribers by the home opener. We were at 750, and now we're over 810. So that in itself is we need a big thank you to everyone. And we can't wait to have beers with all you at the CTC tomorrow and beyond. It's going to be a really great day, and one that's been much anticipated for some time. So if you haven't already, go subscribe on YouTube, Locked On Senators. We do very much appreciate that. All right, we've done Boston, we've done Buffalo, lots more to get to, but Pilsy, I know you've been waiting for this. BetOnline, the number 1 sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and they're awesome. Like, just go check it out for yourself. Brand new interface. You can wager on not only the score of the game, you can wager on teams, but also player props. So if you have a favorite player, but you hate the team, you're like, oh, this guy's going to score, go to BetOnline. Throw some shekels on it where your mouth is, and what you can do there is also put in the promo code Locked On. Promo code Locked On gives you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So then when you ride with Pilsy's parlay of the day, you won't feel so bad, because that free play money is all yours for signing up at betonline.ag. Again, the promo code is Locked On for a 50% welcome bonus. Pilsy, you know what they say, though. Every day is another opportunity. And today you have an opportunity to make up for, I mean, you went 1-1, but if there's ever a 1 or beyond in the losing column, it doesn't matter for a parlay. So how are you going to be perfect today?
Yeah, well, I'm going to do my best. And first off, shout out Lincoln Barry on Twitter at Lincoln_Barry saying,
he's in Australia.
Nice. Love it. Love it. Thanks, mate. Look, nobody was expecting that scoreline. Ride or die with Brandon Pillar. I appreciate that because as long as people are saying like, all right, like his thought process was okay. Like, like it's not like I'm just off the rails here, just chasing crazy odds and going after those big pluses. So thanks for supporting me, but maybe you want to fade me if I'm being totally honest. But we're in our second parlay here, so hopefully this goes a little better. I'm looking at tonight's games, Montreal and Toronto. That's going to be real interesting. I don't know, has there been an update on Matthew and Marner? Like, are they going to be in the game or...
Mitchell Marner has not yet been decided. Matthews is out for the week. I almost said year, but
so two of their top guys out. I'm not sure how they're going to do there. And then, yeah, Sean already faded me, but that's fine. I don't mind if you guys fade me. If I can't put up the numbers, what can I do there, right?
Yeah,
so that's
fair.
Totally fine. So I'm going for the over here because also no carry price for the Canadiens, and I really think that this is a game where it's going to be interesting and there's going to be lots of goals scored. These two teams are going to want to start the season off right. So I'm going for the over at 5.5 with -137 odds. Then I really like the Jets' chance here up against the Ducks, and I don't mind that odd. So I'm taking Jets money line up against the Ducks. That's a -135 money line. So Jets money line. Over of Habs Leafs, put $10 in, you're going to win $20.11. Let's get back that $10 that we lost last night, Ross, and get things rolling here.
Make sure you use the promo code Locked On to receive your 50% welcome bonus. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get into the action. It's BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Pilsy, back to the preview of the Atlantic Division. Again, you can go check out all the Locked On shows. There's one for each in the Atlantic Division. I was on Locked On Florida Panthers the other day, so we'll get to that. But chronologically, going through the Atlantic Division. So we've done Boston, we've done Buffalo, the Detroit Red Wings. I will call them a young and exciting team. I will. They're at that stage in the rebuild where you're going to see Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond this year. That in itself is good. Everything else, not there yet.
Yeah, I would agree with you. They're very much at a stage where they're just trying to load up for this rebuild and put some okay pieces around these kids to make things work. But this is a tough team, especially. I feel so bad that Jacob Vrana is out long term. Like that was really a bright spot. He was lighting it up for them. It looked like he was going to fit in there perfectly. And then some real question marks with Tyler Bertuzzi, right? As he's one of the players, I believe, still is unvaccinated.
One of 4.
Yeah, and choosing not to be vaccinated. So he legally will not be allowed to play in multiple states. I think it was like New York, a couple other states. He won't be able to play for those road games. So that's a big part of it. And Tyler Bertuzzi isn't even that much of a goal scorer. He's not going to do too much for you, but that's a big part of their lineup that's not going to be there along with Jacob Vrana. So there's a lot of goal scoring out of the picture here. Philip Zadina, this guy's going to have to figure it out for sure. They put a lot of draft capital in him to score goals, and that just hasn't happened quite yet. But Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider are going to be sick this year, and amazing trade by Stevie Y to get Nedeljkovic there as their young goalie now for hardly any price at all. It's like a 3rd round pick, and they're only paying him just over $3 million. Yeah, so great job there. I think the Nick Leddy acquisition was good. They were talking about it on 32 Thoughts, a podcast, saying like, this is a good move to bring in a veteran just to kind of shoulder some of the responsibility of all this losing, right? Like you can't just lose night after night and these young kids get discouraged. So they're going to have a veteran who's got championship pedigree. He was a part of the Blackhawks. He's been a part of a really good Islanders team for a long time. So he can kind of shelter those young guys. And another guy I think people overlook is Philip Roenick, the defenseman. He put up big points for them last season, and I'm expecting another big season from him here.
Yeah, Dylan Larkin's still a great player down the middle.
Captain.
Philip Zadina, will he take another step? But unlike the Senators, I would say that the Detroit Red Wings were or would be 1 year behind Ottawa in the rebuild. Their first high pick was, I guess, 6th overall is fairly high, but their first And I guess that's why they drafted Seider too. It's just he's become that much better of a prospect. But when you look at the pieces that they had when Stevie Y came in, they didn't have the opportunity to get so many assets for individual players like Ottawa did for Carlson and beyond. So it's been a little bit slower of a build, but they do have the right guy in charge. Jay Pilsey, like Stevie Y is exactly who you'd want to be in charge, and probably a little bit extra. There you go. Probably
I got
a little
him right
bit
here. Yzerman bobblehead.
Probably a little bit of salt, maybe not, but because Stevie Yzerman, nobody built in Tampa, but he's there for so long. They have the disappointment of the sweep to Columbus. They lose in the Stanley Cup final in 2015, and then he leaves and they win back-to-back cups. So not that he's starving for a cup ring. I mean, he probably is, but he has a few to lean back on. I believe he's a 3-time champ as a player. So Stevie Y, it's going to be another tough year, I'd say, for Detroit, but at the same time, you're starting to see the pieces come together, and it could be a good team. And hey, if Nedeljkovic can stand on his head, a bit different of a style in front of him than what Carolina was able to keep shots to the outside more last year.
Yep.
But the pieces are coming together for the Red Wings, much like we've seen them come together for the Florida Panthers, Pilsy. This team, they've got the perfect mix of vets and guys who are up and coming and prospects and superstars. Like Alex Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau are both superstars, in my opinion. They're in the top
especially
20
Barkov.
players.
Maybe Huberdeau's a little farther down, but
probably
Barkov definitely
because of the positioning. But at the same time, you look at what Huberdeau's been able to do over the course of the last few seasons, like over a point per game in each of the last three. 3 years ago, the last full NHL season, 82 games, 92 points. Like these guys are unreal, and they've been playing them on separate lines. Do you like that?
I think for Florida, they've needed to do that. Maybe now that they finally got some depth scoring in, talk about that pick acquisition of Sam Reinhart has looked really good for them. And then Sam Bennett completely changed the type of player and his ability going from Calgary to Florida. He was lighting it up when they brought him in. I think he did have a suspension though, which was kind of a head scratcher and a tough move there, but he did really play well. Anthony Duclair is looking like the Duclair we know as Sens fans, and finally he signed a decent ticket, a 3-year deal, so he's going to be comfortable and confident in Florida. And then, like you said, some veterans down in the depths too. Like you got Joe Thornton there; he's still hungry for a cup. Definitely the foot speed isn't there, but the hockey IQ is there. So in limited minutes, he can definitely provide a role. And then I think a lot of people undermine Patrick Hornqvist. I think he's still a good net front presence guy that can shoot the puck. So that's great too. And then talk about young players too. Anton Lundell might have been one of the best picks in that draft, following his draft selection. You know what I mean? Like once he was selected, his stock was rising and rising. I think he had like a 4-point night, like a couple nights after he was drafted or something. Like he was just lighting it up. So Anton Lundell is going to look really good as a third line center, in my opinion. And then you go to the back end, and I think this is where it's a little iffy. If Aaron Ekblad can stay healthy, he's a top pair guy, and that looks great. Mackenzie Weegar has come into his own and is looking like a top 4 defenseman. He looks great. You get the physicality with Radko Gudas in there. You get a little offensive touch with Brandon Montour in there as well. So their decor isn't that bad, but can it stack up to decors like Tampa, like Toronto, like Boston? Maybe not quite yet. They're not there, so that's tough. And then you can't talk about the Florida Panthers without bringing attention to the crease. Like, what a weird crease situation to have Sergei Bobrovsky making $10 million a year and barely being a good enough NHL backup, let alone being a starter. And then you've got Spencer Knight, the new kid that they spent a lot of draft capital on, looking like an absolute stud early. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at a tandem here where Spencer Knight is the 1A goalie and Bobrovsky's the 1B.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him either. This kid looks like he's been the real deal since going back even before he got to Boston College, where he spent a couple seasons, was 13th overall pick, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the NHL draft a few years ago. So, hey, he's ready to take the next step, no question. But then Bobrovsky's only in the third year of a $70 million contract. Yeah. So how quickly can you push a guy like that out? Now, they also had a Joe Thornton for a little bit of veteran presence, and I was a little surprised seeing Anthony Duclair alongside Joe Thornton on the fourth line. after they finally paid him, right? They gave him a few years, and then now
I don't think that'll stay like that.
No, but you look who's above him on the right side. Sam Reinhart is going to stay there. Owen Tippett looks like he's about to come into his own. And then Patrick Hornqvist, I think, is the perfect complement to Anton Lundell as a rookie. You get this hard-nosed winger in there who can go dig out pucks. We know Duclair can play a bit of the left wing too, and maybe there's a spot for him on the third line instead of Vetrano. But, hey, the big news with the Panthers is that Aaron Ekblad is completely healthy. Like, him going down last year changed the outlook of their season. So I'm excited to see. They also, they've got some skill and some grit back there. When you look at Radko Gudas, again, another guy, one of those guys you have to keep your head up when they're out on the ice. So the Florida Panthers, man, look out for them, actually. And I know it almost seems strange to say, but they are a team to be reckoned with. And last year they had a pretty solid team too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, second in the Central Division. They were 37-14-5. They ended the season on a 6-game win streak, ultimately falling in the first round to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So again, we'll get to our predictions at the end, but moving along, the Montreal Canadiens, of course, they made it to the Stanley Cup final, but are they due for a regression, Pilsy?
I think they are due for a regression here, but for a team that went to the Stanley Cup finals, this team has gone over some major, major changes, and some of them kind of out of their control too, right? Like, you're looking at the leadership group for this team. Shea Weber, I mean, he's all but retired, right? He's just hasn't mentioned it so that he can keep getting insurance paycheck, is from what I'm understanding. And then you got Carey Price, who's been the backbone of that franchise ever since he was drafted, is in the player assistance program for who knows how long. And hopefully he stays as long as he needs to get the assistance that he needs to be ready to play in the NHL again. So those are two of your most important leadership players out of the picture now. And that's tough for sure. But they've done a good job of adding some new talent to this team, right? Like, you look at, I love the Christian Dvorak move. That was a great way to make up for the offer sheet where they lost Kotkaniemi to the Hurricanes. And Dvorak's arguably a better player than Kotkaniemi is now. Maybe long down the road, it doesn't look like that. But also, bringing in Dvorak helps shore up some of that defensive center-mindedness that left out the window when Philip Deneau got a massive contract to go play in LA, right? So I think Dvorak being brought in was good. Nick Suzuki just signed that big deal. Michael Hoffman, I still don't know what's going on with him. Like, he's still not able to play for this team, and they signed him to a 3-year deal worth a decent amount of money. So that's a head scratcher. And then on the decor, like I mentioned, Weber out, but in comes David Savard at one of the best contracts signed this offseason, Ross. I think they signed him for 4 years at $3.5 million a year. Like, that is a great value signing, a guy who obviously wanted to play in Montreal. And then you got KHL Defenseman of the Year, former Senator Chris Weidman, back there as well. So I think with the addition of those two, that really helps kind of soften the blow of losing Weber. But then you trickle down to the goaltending, and Jake Allen is not a starting goaltender. I don't mean that with any disrespect, but when he was set as a starter in St. Louis, he struggled. But then when you put him in a tandem, which St. Louis liked to do a lot of the time when he was there, he had good numbers. So as a tandem or like a steady backup, very good goalie. And it worked perfectly to have him with Carey Price. But now their goaltending tandem is Jake Allen and Steve Montembeault. And Montembeault, he's from Florida. He had okay numbers in Florida and underwhelming numbers in the AHL. So he's really only going to be getting starts on games where he needs to, right? Like back-to-backs or really weak matchups. So that's going to be tough until they figure out how long Carey Price is going to be out for.
They acquired a couple of French Canadians as well. Cedric Paquette, who Sens fans will be familiar with from last year, and Mathieu Perreault as well.
True, I like that sign.
Yeah, he's a good fourth liner. You can get in there and mix it up. The key is their young players are going to have to take a huge step forward. Like Jonathan Drouin coming back from his absence.
Massive. Yep.
Yeah, but then it's Caulfield and Suzuki. What kind of production can they get from them? If it's a very good production, I think they can do well. But if it doesn't kind of exponentially grow, I don't know if they're going to be the team to beat here in the Atlantic. As you look, and yeah, they had that great run in the playoffs, but when you go with just regular season standings, 24, 21, and 11, that's pretty pedestrian. They limped into the playoffs, losing their last 5 games. And of course, they got lucky and got to play the Toronto Maple Leafs in round one. That'll help out anyone. But the Montreal Canadiens, again, we'll wait and give our predictions at the end as we continue going through team by team. So that's the Montreal Canadiens. Of course, the Ottawa Senators. We've been there, done that. The Toronto Maple Leafs, Tampa's first. It's just it's already sorted here on my list because Tampa's 0-1. So they're at the very bottom. But the Tambay Lightning, the reigning Stanley Cup champions 2 times. What do you expect from them this year?
I expect another massive season. Now, do I think they can get the three-peat? Probably not. Losing that entire third line of Gord, Coleman, and Barclay Goodrow is tough to make a long run in the playoffs. So I think that's really going to hurt them. But it's pretty easy to talk yourself into a serious contender when you have Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the NHL, hands down. So when you have that starting out, goalie-friendly show, that's going to look very good for you. Then you move on up to the D-core. Victor Hedman, Sergachev, McDonough, Chernak. Like, there's just so much talent on that D-core. No matter who you put out there, you're going to have one solid defenseman at all times. So that's tough. And then, despite losing an entire third line of effective, good, gritty goal scorers, you still kept the core together. Like, points there. Stamkos, Cirelli, Kucherov, Killorn, all these guys, Palat. These guys are still there. So, like, they can plug in play with the bottom depth pieces however you need. And I love getting Corey Perry on this team. You gotta love that move.
It's the Marian Hossa move almost. Where
pretty much. Yep. Corey Perry, he's been the loser in both of those finals up against the very same Tampa Bay Lightning team. So he's like, hell, if you can't beat them, join them. That's a smart move for sure. And I can think of worse things than living on a Stanley Cup contending team in a tax break warm weather place all year round. So that's definitely not a bad move for Corey Perry. And I really see this team as still the best team in this division. Like, there's just too much talent in each area that other teams, maybe they can hang with them, but I don't think in like a 7-game series they can beat them out. So Tampa is still the top team for me, and they've done a good job of keeping all these core players together.
Especially when you look at they have the best goalie in the NHL by far. In Andre Vasilevsky. What was it? He's clinched his last 5 series via shutouts.
It's something crazy like that. Yeah, he just shuts the door when there's an opportunity to move on.
Unbelievable goaltender in Andre Vasilevsky. He's my favorite goalie to watch in the NHL too. Like, the way he's so athletic and he stays a little deeper in his net than most. He is very, very elite. And his backup this year is a different sends abroad. Curtis McElhinney announced his retirement, but they go out and get Brian Elliott. And he's not going to have to play very much because Vasilevsky likes having a strong workload. You look at their back end, Hedman, McDonough, Sergachev. That's just the right side. That's just the left side. And then, I mean, they still have Eric Chernak, who really came into his own. And then Zach Bogosian comes back. He left for Toronto, realized, whoa, don't want to be here. So then, he's back in Tampa. They also added Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, a solid fourth-line center with a ton of experience with the Vegas Golden Knights and with the Philadelphia Flyers, a very rare Frenchman, not from Quebec, from France in the NHL. So, but their top 6 is still the best in the league. Like Point, Kucherov, Palat, Cirelli, Killorn, and Steven Stamkos. So they're going to be tough to beat for sure. And there's a reason why they're the 2-time Stanley Cup champions. Now we move on to the 15-time first-round losers, or if they even get there. I mean, the COVID, they didn't even get past Columbus to get into the postseason. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, they've been trying everything. They tried to go full goon squad with Brian Burke, where they had like Fraser McLaren, Colton Orr, like
Dion Phaneuf back in his day.
Yeah, truculence. It came and went. Then they tried ultra skill when the Kyle Dubas era started, and that didn't work. So now it seems like they're trying to find this balance where they're trying to add the right pieces surrounding the skill. But how did you think their offseason went?
This team did not get better. Like, I can definitely say that with confidence. I really thought last year was their year to do it. Like, they had the right opportunities. I just think they made some misguided moves. Like, we love Nick Foligno. He's a great guy, but trading a first-round draft pick to get a guy to play bottom 6 tough guy minutes, like, just didn't make sense, especially when you look at Taylor Hall getting moved for a second-round pick. Like, there's just so many moves they could have done that they didn't do. And then they traded good capital. I think it was a 3rd-round pick for David Riddick. He didn't even play. Did he play a single game for them? I don't
Riddick,
know.
I think he played 1 or 2.
Yeah, but he didn't factor into things. And like they had all the pieces there to make something happen, and they just weren't able to do it. And obviously that John Tavares injury in the playoffs really, really hurt them. But I don't think they're better this year. Now, I will give them a hat tip. Mrazek is an upgrade over Freddie Anderson, that's for sure. But like we talked about before, he's a very hot, cold guy. Like there can be instances where he'll shut the door, and there's other times where you're like, get this guy off the ice as soon as possible. And then are you really going to hand the reins over to Jack Campbell again? Not that he did a bad job. He had decent numbers, but is that your Stanley Cup strategy? You think you can ride him all the way to the cup? I'm not so convinced, right? And you can't rely on Mrazek's hot and cold starts. So that's tough there. I think one of their best moves was getting Nick Ritchie. I think Ritchie really fits into what they're trying to do. He's a big kid that can also score. I think that helps out, but we're going to see some struggles early on from this team and from the star players with the loss of Zach Hyman. Hyman did so much for this team and so much for those guys to succeed and be able to get into spots to score goals. They're going to have to find a way to start doing it themselves now, rather than just let Zach Hyman get all the pucks in the corners and they just hang out in the slot for the one-timer pass, right? So I think that's going to be very tough as the adjustment of no Zach Hyman.
Nick Ritchie is no Zach Hyman. But that being said, this Michael Bunting kid might be. He's got speed, and he looked really good. I think he had 10 goals in 20 games with Arizona last year in his first real taste. So again, not as locked in as an NHL player just yet, but he's going back to his hometown to get a real opportunity. And then David Kampf will bring them a little bit more of a checking forward at the 3rd-line center spot. And I mean, right now, without Matthews, their lineup looks pretty pedestrian when you've got guys like Michael Amadio on the 4th line and Andre Cachet, who hasn't been able to stay healthy there on the 3rd line. And right now, it's the regular season doesn't even matter for the Toronto Maple Leafs or their fans. Like, I was a producer for TSN 1050 the last 2 years doing Leaf games, and every win was like, yeah, we're expected to win. And every loss, the whole world was collapsing. So that's just the mindset. That's the mindset of Maple Leaf fans. And for better or worse, I think that's going to really stress them out all year long. So, and I mentioned Michael Amadio. They're trying to copy the Sens here in the 4th line. They've got Amadio and Jason Spezza, and then Wayne Simmons, who I would expect to get into a scrap tomorrow night at some point against Ottawa. Clearly, he wasn't happy with Drake Batherson when he had his 9 hits in that one game, and then took a run at Sabrin, after Sabrin fought Justin Hall for his hit on Tim Stützle. But the Toronto Maple Leafs, again, it's a team that they don't scare me. I'm not scared looking up and down this roster. Yes, they have talented players, Marner, Matthews, and the like of them, but that back end doesn't really impress me. Like, sure, Muzzin's a decent defenseman, but like TJ Brody for me, a little overrated. Justin Hall, he's okay. Dermott, whatever. And Sandin, let's see it. Like, he could be a guy who steps up here, could be an X factor on this team, and he might have to, because I don't know if Morgan Rielly is going to be extending there, right? He's going into the last year of his contract. So lots of question marks for a team that hasn't been out of the first round in 17 years. Last season, they led the North Division with a 35-14-7 record, but then you'll remember they went 3-4 in the first round of the playoffs. All right, that's our Atlantic Division preview, Pilsy. Now let's go from 3 to 1. Who are the top 3 teams in this division who will represent, wildcard aside, top 3 right now? Go ahead.
Well, if you're doing 3-2-1, then I've got the Boston Bruins at 3rd.
Okay.
Toronto Maple Leafs at 2. Tampa Bay Lightning at 1.
All right. Interesting. And what's your reasoning for leaving out the Florida Panthers? I'll tease that by saying they make it into my top 3.
These other three teams just have too much regular season stability, right? Like the Tampa Bay Lightning, over an 82-game stretch, they're going to be so stable, and I don't think any team's going to be able to be as consistent as they are. Like, Vasilevsky can cover up a lot of problems for a team that doesn't have too many problems to begin with. So I just see them as being the top team in the division. Then Toronto Maple Leafs, like you mentioned, they're a regular season team. They're going to do well in the regular season. Those guys are going to get their points in Tavares, Matthews, Marner, Nylander. Those guys are going to light it up in the regular season, sure. So I think they're going to end up second. They're also going to make some moves at the deadline. I'm positive of that as well. Then the Bruins, that pedigree that Marchand, Pasternak, Bergeron have, and if the goaltending can hold up to their previous year's numbers, like Ulmarku and Swayman, if they can hold up, I think they're going to be able to keep that third spot. It's just the other teams like Florida and Montreal, they're not so used to having consistent regular seasons, right? So I think that's where there's going to be some wavering with those teams.
Fair enough. So Pilsy's got Tampa Bay 1, Toronto 2, and Boston 3. My top 3, I've got number 3, Toronto. I'm sneaking the Florida Panthers in at number 2, and then unless they prove me otherwise, I will continue to hammer on the fact that the Tampa Bay Lightning deserve to be number 1, not only in this division, but in the entire National Hockey League, Pills.
Yeah, probably. I don't know if I would so confidently say they're number 1, but it's hard to argue that they're going to be in that race.
Who's next, Colorado or Vegas?
Yep, Colorado and Vegas are the two teams I would have pretty right on par with the Lightning.
Not Carolina. They don't make it right in that same conversation.
Freddie Anderson and Antti Ranta don't get it done for me over an 82-game season. The Islanders, they're not on the same tier as Colorado, Vegas, and Tampa, but they're right there.
They just win. It's pretty impressive. So I've got Florida at 2. You've got Toronto at 2. I have Toronto at 3, and you have Boston. My last question for you before we sign off until game day for the Ottawa Senators. Pilsy, how many teams from the Atlantic do you think will make the playoffs? So guaranteed 3, but then 4 and 5 could be decided through the wild card.
I think 4 teams get there. I don't think 5. My 4th team is the Florida Panthers. I think they'll find a way to get it done, and they've got some little brother syndrome going with the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? They've got something to prove, so I think they're going to be hungry and sneak into the playoffs here. And I have Montreal looking out. I think just the question marks around Price. They brought in so much new talent. Like you said, a lot of pressure is being put on the young guys in Caulfield and Suzuki. I think they're going to be close. I think they're going to be playing meaningful games all the way down the stretch, but they're just not quite going to make it because that Metro division is absolutely stacked. So it's going to be hard for them to beat out a Metro team for a wild card spot, in my opinion.
I'm gonna say 5. I think that the Metropolitan division is a little overrated. Like I don't know how long Ovi or Backstrom are going to be missing for, but I don't know if the Washington Capitals are a playoff team this year. I might see them as a team that's really taking a step back. Philly made a ton of changes, but it's all going to come down to say what you want. And like Ristolainen, they went out and got a player who everyone thinks sucks. So they also got Ryan Ellis.
I think Ristolainen, people need to cut him some slack because he's not going to be expected to play the same role as he did in Buffalo. And like when you're expected to be the top defenseman in Buffalo, your numbers are going to look like crap. Whereas I think he's going to be a second pair, like 4th defenseman on this Philly team. I think he's going to look a lot better than he did in Buffalo.
Fair. My only 3 teams from the Metropolitan are going to be the Islanders, the Hurricanes, and the Rangers. So that means I've got Pittsburgh out, Columbus out, New Jersey, they made some nice pickups, out.
Yeah.
And then the Flyers and Capitals. And if that happens, then I think, Boston and then Montreal or Ottawa fighting for that last playoff spot. Wouldn't that be amazing if it was coming down the stretch and that's the matchup that we needed? So hopefully, cross our fingers that Brady Tkachuk will sign soon. Pilsy, let's try to do something tomorrow. It's all hype up for the game. Let's try not to say the words Brady Tkachuk on tomorrow's show. Do you think you can do that? I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know if we can do that. What if he signs? Then we're really shooting ourselves in the foot here.
We can't use it as an excuse or a reason why the Sens might.
If you're not here, we don't want to talk about you.
Well, not only that, but like an eye for an eye. So the Sens don't have Brady. The Leafs don't have Matthews. We don't need to discuss it for tomorrow's game. There's different reasons behind it, but I'm gonna say that this will be a Brady free hour tomorrow unless he signs.
Let's do it. I like that. I mean, we need to put the spotlight on the guys that are here, the guys we're going to see on the ice, and I'm tired of the BT number 7 discussions as well. So we can do that for sure.
We will, however, discuss with Lalim's Martian tomorrow, as he's going to join us not only at the game, but on tomorrow's Locked On Senators. We're going to ask him what his burning questions are going into the season, his prediction for the Senators, and a whole lot of hype heading into the first game at the Canadian Tire Center with fans since March of 2020. But for today, we say goodbye. Thanks so much for listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. It does go a very long way. And we'll talk tomorrow. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On